Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be running through my start sits at the quarterback position, so breaking down all 14 Week 9 matchups and listing every starting quarterback as a start or a sit. While you guys are watching the video, if you're enjoying the content, just do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you guys get notified every time I post a video, and then you guys can ask me any questions down below in the comment section and I'll respond to every single person. But let's just get right into the Thursday night matchup where we have the Jets traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. And on the Jets side, I know Mike White balled out in his start in Week 8, put up 400 plus yards, led the NFL in passing yards, and then also got a big win over a good Bengals team. But I just think this may be a little bit fluky. I'm not willing to throw him into my lineup once again, especially against a tough Colts defense. So he's a sit. On the other side, I'm going to be rolling with Carson Wentz. He's just been a fairly stable option at the quarterback position. Plus, this week against the Jets, this is a great matchup for opposing offenses. So I do think Carson Wentz is a safe start this week. Then moving on to Sunday, we have a divisional matchup between the Falcons and the Saints. On the Falcons side, I'm just going to be sitting Matt Ryan. This is a tough matchup against the Saints defense. Plus, without Calvin Ridley in the lineup, I just don't know if this offense has enough firepower to really get it done and truly support Matt Ryan. That wide receiver core is not looking good, and you're basically just rolling with Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson. I don't feel great about that, so he's a sit. On the other side, if the Saints go with Taysom Hill at quarterback, he's been dealing with a concussion the last few weeks, but if they commit to him, he's the quarterback, he's ready to go. I would feel comfortable starting Taysom Hill. We saw in the 4 starts he had last year, he was a QB1 the majority of the time. He gets that rushing work, and he is a major red zone threat. But if the Saints end up going with Trevor Siemian over Taysom Hill, or Taysom Hill is still unable to go, I don't want him in my lineup. They're just going to feed Kamara, and they're going to rely on that defense. So Taysom Hill's a start if he goes. Siemian is a sit. Then we have the Broncos taking on the Cowboys, and I'm sitting Teddy Bridgewater. He really just hasn't looked very good the last few weeks. He started off fairly well, even with these weapons back. I just don't think he has any ceiling, and his floor is not very high either. With the Cowboys, I would expect Dak Prescott to return here. He went through a full pregame warm-up prior to Sunday Night Football. Didn't end up going, but he looked pretty solid, so I think he will be back in there and playing in Week 9. And when he plays, he is a locked-in start for everyone. Patriots Panthers is up next here, and I'm just not interested in any of these quarterbacks. Mac Jones has played fairly solid. He really just doesn't have a huge fantasy ceiling. And then for the Panthers, Sam Darnold exited that Week 8 game with an injury. If he's back, I don't want to play him. He has looked terrible the last few weeks, and then I don't really trust his backup either. So PJ Walker and Sam Darnold would both be sits. Next matchup is between the Vikings and the Ravens, and both of these quarterbacks are starts for me. Kirk Cousins is a little bit up and down, but he still has those weapons around him, and due to the bye weeks, we have 4 teams on bye. I still think he's a solid start moving forward. For the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, not much to say here. He's a locked-in start every week. Next game is a divisional matchup between the Browns and the Bengals. For the Browns, I really just have no faith in Baker Mayfield. I've been seeing these clips all over the place. Odell Beckham wide open, Baker just blowing it. He's dealing with that shoulder injury. I imagine that's difficult to play with. They're going to continue to rely on the run game, and I just don't think Baker's going to get it done for fantasy purposes. With the Bengals, I think Joe Burrow is a solid start. He's got that nice wide receiver core. He's been playing well, so I would definitely like him in my lineup. Then we've got the Bills traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars, and this one is pretty cut and dry for both teams. Josh Allen in your lineup every single week. On the other side with Trevor Lawrence, just is not playing well. It kind of looked like things were looking up, and then he just goes out and does not perform well against the Seahawks defense. So he is a sit up against this tough Buffalo Bills D. Then we've got the Texans traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. No matter who the Texans start at quarterback, whether it's Davis Mills or maybe Tyrod Taylor is able to return, I just don't trust them. The Dolphins defense actually looked much improved against the Bills on Sunday, so maybe they're kind of turning a corner. Either way, I don't trust these Texans quarterbacks. On the other side with the Dolphins, I think Tua is a really solid start. He really hasn't played that badly in terms of fantasy He's averaging over 19 points per game in his 4 full games. And then this Texans defense is not good. So I think he can be a nice, solid play this week. Maybe your starting quarterback is on bye. Maybe you've got Tom Brady. He's a nice guy to be streaming this week. Then we've got the Raiders taking on the Giants. On the Raiders side, I'm sticking with Derek Carr. He has played very well this season. I don't see why that changes this week. For the Giants, this one was kind of a fringe call. Ended up going with Daniel Jones as a sit, and it's just because there's so much uncertainty at the wide receiver position regarding all these guys' health. You've got Shepard banged up. Tony looks like he's banged up again. Galladay missed the game. Slayton's injured. Pettis is injured. There's just too much uncertainty right now for me to list him as a start. So, unless like 3 of those guys return, that's where he's probably going to stay. Then we've got the Chargers facing off against the Eagles, and both of these quarterbacks are going to be starts. Justin Herbert has not played well the last 2 games, but I think he can bounce back. This isn't a super tough Eagles defense. He has the weapons around him, so I'm going to be buying into him once again. And then for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is pretty much a locked-in start. He has the rushing upside, so he really doesn't even have to play well as an NFL quarterback. He can still produce for fantasy. Plus, if they're ever in garbage time, that man just cleans up. If you actually watch the games, he does not look good, but when you look at the final stat line, when they're down, 10 plus points, he just eats up those numbers, which, obviously probably not great if you're an Eagles fan, but for fantasy football purposes, you love to see it. Then we have a quarterback showdown between the Packers and the Chiefs. Aaron Rodgers going up against Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers locked in start. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. There's no denying it. He is not playing well. If you watched that game last night, the man just throws a ton of interceptable passes. There's definitely some arguments to be made about the receivers. You've got things going through their hands, bouncing off of helmets. But, you cannot argue that Patrick Mahomes is playing well right now. He is just not. But for fantasy purposes, I still think he gets it done. They're going to be passing a lot. You see teams playing with these 2 high safeties, basically daring them to run and check down. And they did do a better job of that here in Week 8. But I still think they're going to want to push it down the field. They're going to be putting the ball in Mahomes' hands. So he is still a nice fantasy option. Then we've got the Cardinals taking on the 49ers in the divisional game. Kyler Murray locked in start, assuming he's good to go. He may not be good to go, potentially out 1 to 3 weeks. If he is out and is not able to play this Sunday, then I would not trust the backup, and that would make me feel a lot less confident about Christian Kirk and AJ Green. For the 49ers, even though Jimmy Garoppolo put together a nice performance against the Bears, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I just don't think that's sustainable, and so he is going to be on the bench. For Sunday Night Football, we have the Titans facing off against the Rams, and both of these quarterbacks are going to be starts for me. With Derrick Henry out likely for the season, Ryan Tannehill is going to have to step up, and he is definitely going to have more on his plate. And then for the Rams, Matthew Stafford is just a lock in your lineups every single week. And then the last game of the week, Monday Night Football, both of these quarterbacks are sits. Even though Justin Fields did play very well against the 49ers, I just need to see it a few more times for me to really have any trust in him, because coming off a 5-turnover game, one solid performance does not just reverse everything that's happened throughout the season. And then on the other side with the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger really just hasn't been a reliable play. No upside there, and the floor is not very high either, so he is also a sit. And that is going to wrap it up for this video, all 14 Week 9 matchups. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ask me anything down below. I'm going to be posting my tight end start sits later today, and then I already have posted my running backs and wide receivers yesterday, so go check all of that out. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.